Spoken input and output, module 1, unit 2. So here are the main points for today. It's the idea of learning algorithmic recipes for teaching, listening, and speaking. What is an algorithmic activity? We'll explain that hopefully by the end of this talk. You'll know what I mean by that. My name is Professor Joseph Polshock, and this is Elemental Linguistics. As we teach listening and speaking, I like the idea of putting that teaching in the context or the framework of the 4 strands, which I have mentioned before. Paul Nation's 4 strands for a balanced language course. For teaching listening and speaking, mostly I'll be talking about meaning-focused input and meaning-focused output, but we can also do fluency and language-focused activities for listening and speaking. To begin, Paul Nation, in his wonderful book, What Should Every EFL Teacher Know?, talks about the importance of teaching students survival tools, survival English language. So he suggests that we learn the basic survival words and phrases. If you want to learn another language, these would be the first things you'd learn. Greetings, numbers, directions, controlling input. For example, I'm sorry, could you speak more slowly, please? And of course, knowing how to say things politely. The good news is that these survival words amount to about 120 words. And as a teacher, a good way to introduce these is to help the students put them on word cards and learn the word card learning technique, which I think I have mentioned in a previous talk. So that's the idea of survival tools, the survival words that you need for basic communication, the most basic communication. Another kind of activity that we can use algorithmically with students is this idea of story listening. So of course, learners need to listen, and we need to find stories for them at the right level. Stories are good. Stories are interesting. A character who meets conflict and tries to get out of it. A character who meets trouble and tries to get out of the trouble. Using stories is ideal. But as students listen, we can hide the text, show the text, vary the speed, start slow, do it again a little bit faster, do it a third time, even faster. We can highlight some keywords, but not too much, because we want to focus on the message, the story, not so much the language. So we highlight the keywords that help the students understand. So how do you find the right level of listening activities for your students? Well, one great site for this is lo.org. And if you go into the site and navigate around, you can see that they have levels, very short stories. It's very interesting. I highly recommend it. The key point for doing these story listening activities is that it's for the students to understand and enjoy. It shouldn't be too difficult, and it should be for pleasure. And you can see if students are understanding by watching them and seeing if they're paying attention, reacting, and so forth. So that's story listening. Another kind of algorithmic activity is this idea of problem solving. And as we get to the end of the talk, I hope you'll understand what the algorithmic activity idea is. So hold on to that for just a minute. Paul Nation, in his book, What Should Every EFL Teacher Know?, talks about problem solvers or problem solving, and he talks about 6 clear outcomes, so that when you make a problem solving activity, you need to create really clear guiding phrases that give the students, that cause the students to do specific things, get them to do clear outcomes and results. So 3 keywords are suggest, choose, and rank, and I'll explain as I go on. Another 3 keywords are decide, locate, and arrange. So let's look at an example of one of these. Let's be the suggest one. So we tell a story about Jim who's been eating poorly. We can talk about it. That's a very simple phrase, but we can make a story out of it if we want. And now the students are supposed to suggest 5 healthy foods so that he can eat better. They can suggest those 5 foods together in groups. An advanced student might say, I think he should eat more vegetables, whereas a lower level student might say, vegetables. So students of different levels can participate in a problem-solving activity. After the small group comes up with their 5 suggestions, one person can report those to the whole class. That's one example. Here's a problem-solving activity that uses the principle of ranking to get a clear outcome. So background story about earthquakes. You can tell a story about an earthquake, your experiences with earthquakes. I live in Japan, so we have earthquakes. To prepare for earthquakes, what do you need? Well, you can do this one approach. You have a ranking standard. write number 1 by the most important, number 2 by next important, and then you give the students a list. This is a short list, could be longer, right? Flashlight, water bottles, radio, food. Make a long list, and then the students in groups have to agree on the number for each of the items in the list and rank them, and then explain why they give them their particular rankings. So that's the problem solver activity with a ranking option. And there are other ways to go about this, and I'll explain more as we go on. One activity that I really like to do is this idea of dictation. It's very simple. You're communicating to the students a message, so there's a communicative purpose in dictation. I like to do dictation at the beginning of class, very short dictation related to the topic of that class. So the students start out with a focus. And there's lots of different ways to do dictation. The traditional way is teacher speaks, students write. But there's a number of ways you can do it. You can, for example, students can be in pairs. One person sits at a desk, the other person stands. The person at the desk has a pencil and paper. The person who is standing is going to walk all the way across the room to the other side of the room and see the text for dictation, take a phrase and repeat it in their head as they walk back to their friend, and then say that to them, and the partner writes it down, and they go back and forth and back and forth. There's a number of names for this. It's called running dictation or the messenger and the scribe, but there are variations of dictation that make it interactive and physical. But the traditional approach is speak the text, students write it down. So you need to find a short, easy text, maybe 100 words. Most of the words should be known. If there are any unknown words, you need to pre-teach them, so I suggest keeping that to a bare minimum of 1 or 2 unknown words. Most of them or all of them should be known. Try to connect it to the story or the theme for the day, and then it's great, like I said, for the start of class to get the students focused. You would divide in preparation, you would divide your phrases into 3 to 7 words, so you can speak the text in pieces, and then you might repeat it 2 to 3 times. I like to go slow, medium speed, fast, and sometimes crazy fast. And then after the students have listened and written down their dictation, they can check together in pairs, and the teacher can give them the answer. Here's an example from a quote from the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. I love this book. And a quote from Dr. David J. Schwartz. Here is, right? I like to imitate I'm writing when I do it, if I do it in front of the class. Here is the first step toward success. It's a basic step. Step 1, believe in yourself. Believe you can succeed. Of course, I would say that much slower, step by step, giving the students time to write it down. So that's the idea of dictation. I think it's a good activity, and I would use it almost every day at the beginning of class for maybe 5-10 minutes max. Another one that I've come up with is called flash practice. So you have your traditional dialogue practice, but you do it with a device. A teacher prepares a set of dialogues, and students face each other and the screen. So they need to, if there's a screen in front of the class, the students can't be like this, and they can't be like this facing the screen. They need to be kind of like that, so they can look at the screen and look at each other. So the students face each other and the screen, and I make sure that the setting is right and students know how to do that. If there's an iPad for every student, that's a different case, but if the screen's in front of the class, they face each other and the screen. So you flash a dialogue on the screen. Students take turns with A and B roles, and you can do variations of this. You can have blanks in the dialogue after they've practiced it a few times. You can start showing blanks, so they have to fill in the blanks and use their head. You can do all kinds of different things with this. And you can also time them so that as the dialogue passes up on the screen, they have only a limited number of time to finish it, and then you go to the next dialogue. So here's some examples. So I'll do it like I'm 2 students looking at the screen. What is he doing? He's playing the piano. Very simple one. And then similar with this one, giving a different grammar point. What are they doing? All right, so this one would start this time. What are they doing? They are jogging, right? And so you go through them like that. Here's another dialogue. And with flash practice, you do that through a set, maybe 6, 7 of them. And then you can do a next batch, the same one, but you have the blanks in there, so the students have to think. I encourage the students not to look at the screen when they speak, so they would have to go, what is he doing? instead of looking at the screen and speaking. So they have to put it in their head and use body language and gestures as they do. So you can here you can see the fill in the blank type. And as you use also the timer, so you can run these slides by on a timer. And I might go through one set where each slide is 10 seconds, then they finish, and then try it at 7 seconds and see if students can get fluency with this. The timer is kind of an interesting way of going about this. I wouldn't do this too much. It's kind of drilling and meaningless, but if you do it with variations and with pictures and standing and with groups, pairs like that, it's kind of fun to do. So let's finish up. Let's talk about algorithms again. So you can see this image here of an algorithm. In the middle of this in the middle circle, you can see two key phrases, MT and CP. So MT stands for meaningful topics. The algorithm draws on a meaningful topic. And then the algorithm pops out communication. So CP stands for communication pops. So you have this meaningful topic and a communication principle or communication popping out of it. So let's take a look at a few of these. So the meaningful topic is earthquakes. You could have a story about it. And the communication popper is suggest preparation, right? Look at the other one. It says someone's overweight. That's the meaningful topic. The communication pop out is suggesting a diet. And you can see here another one, earthquakes, but this time the communication principle is rank needed items for preparation. And here's another set. It's flu season, suggest ways to stay healthy. So the meaningful topic is flu season. The communication popper is suggesting to stay healthy. And the next one, meaningful topic, boring classes, communication pop, suggest ways to make it more interesting. And the last one, I've got no friends. That's the meaningful topic, suggest ways to meet friends. So this is what I mean by an algorithm. You have a couple of principles, the meaningful topic plus the communication pop, and that allows you to create basically an unlimited number of lessons. And if you have templates and you're set up to do it, it's very easy to create a bunch of these lessons if you have the basic principle set, the algorithm set first. So that's all I have. Thank you for listening.